Welcome back to another episode of the Science Scoop with Sam, a channel where I use scientific primary literature to determine the validity of everyday claims. Today's claim that we'll be investigating is that apples are good for asthma. This particular claim is brought to you by my grandma, who's been telling me since I was little to eat more apples because they'll fix my asthma. There are plenty of health websites online that also make this claim. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, and prevents asthma, and beats hiccups. 13 best and worst foods for your lungs. Smart food choices may help you breathe easier if you have asthma. And of course, apples are considered the best. An apple a day may keep asthma away. So why do these articles think apples are good for asthma? First, for those of you who aren't familiar with asthma, let's give some background on this respiratory condition. According to the Mayo Clinic, asthma is a condition in which your airways narrow and swell and produce extra mucus. This can make breathing difficult and trigger coughing, wheezing, and shortness of breath. So as you can see with this image provided by Children's Hospital, the airways of an asthmatic are inflamed, making it harder to breathe. The news articles that say apples are good for asthma cite research that suspects flavonoids, secondary metabolites that are a component of apples, have anti-inflammatory properties that can help to relax inflamed airways. Also, apples contain antioxidants, which relieve oxidative stress, something that is thought to affect the pathogenesis of asthma. So, eating apples should supposedly help change an asthmatic's airways from this to this. This claim sounds great to me. I'd love to eat apples until my asthma goes away. But are these news articles speaking the truth? Are apples actually good for asthma? Can they prevent asthma? Can they treat asthma by lessening its severity? Let's look at the primary literature to find out. Most of the primary literature studying this claim goes as follows. The researchers want to see how apples affect asthma in a given population. They send out surveys about asthma as well as diet and lifestyle. They do statistical analysis, accounting for any confounders, then look for an association between apple intake and the prevalence or severity of asthma. So what did they find? One of these experiments took data from the E3N study, which is an investigation of major chronic diseases of women in France who had completed several questionnaires on their health and diet history. The researchers observed a trend in their results between a decrease in asthma prevalence with an increase in apple intake. This supports the claim that apples are beneficial for asthma, pointing to the preventative powers of the fruit. Another such study investigated the effect of dietary antioxidants on the prevalence and severity of asthma in adults in South London. The researchers used the diet surveys to identify individuals with asthma and to calculate each individual's weekly intake of different foods. Overall, they found that there was a weak negative association between asthma prevalence and apple intake, but no effect on severity. A different study sent surveys to the parents of children in a region of the UK that included questions about wheezing and asthma, as well as a fruit frequency questionnaire. Interestingly, they found that instead of apples, consumption of apple juice from concentrate was significantly negatively associated with prevalence of a wheeze or asthma. This is the first study that refutes the claim. A similar study in a different group of school children also did not find a significant trend between fruit intake, specifically apple intake, and prevalence of asthma. The researchers noted in their discussion of results that their data was especially subject to reporting bias from parents, who are likely to overestimate in surveys how much fruit their child eats. In yet another similar study, the researchers used dietary surveys to calculate the weekly intake of all the major subclasses of the flavonoid family for each participant. No evidence was found for associations between the intake of any of the flavonoids, including those found in apples, and the incidence or severity of asthma. Now, let's take a final look at our tallies and decide whether the claim is true that apples are good for asthma. And, drumroll please, it looks like, based on our tallies here, we should refute the claim. But can we really discount the studies that found the claim to be true? I think I'm still undecided. It's suspicious to me that these studies are so similar in design, but all find different results. Maybe the problem here is that these are simply association studies. Maybe there should be studies on a cellular and molecular level to explore how apples interact with cells from an asthmatic's airway. Or maybe there should be a more controlled experiment where asthmatics are monitored and fed apples to see how their breathing changes. Is that even ethical? Who knows? But there's got to be a better experimental design out there than association studies. What I do know is that when looking to scientific primary literature to shine light on the claim that apples are good for asthma, I primarily found the same kind of study over and over again, and not all of these studies came to the same conclusion. So for now, we will still be left wondering whether apples are good for asthma. Hope you liked today's video. Join me next week as we use science to investigate the claim that America runs on Dunkin'. Bye!
created using Powtoon.